There's the mic unmuting itself. My name is Jesse, and welcome to another exciting Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants broadcast. I know we've got a lot of familiar faces in the crowd, but we've also got a ton of you joining for the first time, especially across lovely Alberta. So welcome to the broadcast, and if it's your first time with us here at Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants, we are all about bringing conservation, adventure, and science to classrooms around the world through over 40 live free monthly interactive broadcasts. Everything we do goes live to our YouTube channel and stays there forever. So if you want to hear over 2,500 incredible stories from amazing scientists, conservationists, and organizations like Parks Canada around the world, you can check that out when you're done. Now, today I'm particularly keen because we are welcoming back our all-time favorite group to partner with, and that is Jasper National Park as part of our epic cross-Canada virtual road trip series. For those who've been joining us for the bunch, we've been in Kluwani, we were in Ontario the other day with snakes crossing roads, we're going to some other incredible parks, including PEI, to wrap up with Green Gables in just a few weeks. But today, we are joined live in Jasper, not only one of the gems of Canada's national park system, but one of the gems of the world's national park systems, and we are going to learn together about caribou, because what time is it? It is caribou time. I'm so excited to turn you over to Sabrina at Parks Canada to blow your minds with a story of one of the coolest animals on this planet. Without further ado, Sabrina, thank you so much for joining us today and to take us away.
Hi, Jesse. Thanks for the introduction. So good morning or afternoon, everyone. I'm so happy to be here with all of you today. As Jesse mentioned, my name is Sabrina Kelly, and I am lucky enough to work for Parks Canada in Jasper National Park as an educator at the Palisades Stewardship Education Center. Now, Jasper National Park is one of 47 national parks across Canada. And as you can see on this map here, those are all the green dots, and Jasper National Park is located right here. So it's located on the border between British Columbia and Alberta. And this is the place I call home. But it's also been home to other people for thousands of years. Today, Jasper National Park is located in Treaty 6 and 8 land, as well as the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Assanawich, Winnewak, Deniza, Nahiwak, Saquapam, Stoney Nakoda, Mountain Métis, and Métis. The past, present, and future generations of these nations have and continue to steward our land. There are a number of plants and animals that also live in Jasper National Park, and you're going to join me on an adventure today to learn about some things specifically related to caribou in Jasper National Park. Now, caribou are important not only to Jasper, but to Canada in general, because, as we all know, they are on our quarter. Mountain caribou depend on vast and undisturbed habitats. So over the past 50 years, mountain caribou herds in both Alberta and British Columbia have gotten smaller, and some of those herds have even started to disappear. Protected areas like national parks are key for their survival. And you know what? I love caribou so much that I could actually go on about caribou for days. In fact, did you know that caribou...
Hey, Sabrina.
Oh, hi.
Sorry, are you busy? I know Paul needs us to clean out the storage room.
I'm actually kind of right in the middle of something.
It's pretty urgent, like it's a mess.
Okay, well, I guess it must be pretty important, but you know, this works out perfectly for us because we always find something really interesting in our storage area. In fact, why don't you guys come with me? We'll see what we can find. Come on.
Oh no, this is a lot messier than it was last time. Well, keep your eyes peeled for anything to do with caribou, I guess. Oh, what's this? A key on a caribou hoof? I wonder what this opens. Must have something to do with caribou. Let's go see. Nope, not in here. Nope. Definitely not. Maybe this way. Wow, this is amazing. I think this is a real caribou skull. Take a look. And this must be what the key opens. Let's give it a try. Here we go. What's this? Let's give it a try. Oh, this is amazing. You have to take a look at this. Here, try it on.
Caribou virtual reality helmet. Say yes to continue.
I've got to see this. Yes.
Caribou in the past, present, or future. You have selected present. Please ask your question.
What are some interesting facts about caribou?
Caribou are part of the Cervidae family, which also includes animals like deer, elk, moose, all of which can be found here in Jasper. Caribou live across the world in the northern portions of North America, Europe, and Asia. There are 3 types of caribou that live in Canada: the prairie, the barren ground, and the woodland caribou. In Jasper, we have a subspecies of woodland caribou called the southern mountain caribou. They are medium-sized with dark brown fur mixed with white on their neck, mane, and underbelly. People in European countries often refer to caribou by another name, reindeer. Unlike other members of the deer family, both male and female caribou grow antlers. The males lose their large antlers after the rutting season in the fall from October to December, while females are the ones who have smaller antlers in the winter and generally lose them once the birthing season is over, from late May to mid-June. They have big, wide hooves, which makes it easier for them to walk on the snow in the winter, and the sharp ends allow them to dig for their food of choice, lichen. In the summer, these big hooves make them good swimmers and help them to walk across muddy grounds without sinking. They have an amazing sense of smell, which allows them to smell out predators and in the winter find their favorite food, lichen, under thick layers of snow. Winters get cold here in Jasper National Park, cold enough that some animals hibernate and conserve their energy that way. A few migrate to warmer climates to avoid winter altogether, and others move lower into the valley to avoid the harsh mountains. However, the caribou that call Jasper home move between alpine areas in summer and subalpine forests in winter. They are able to survive this cold climate because they have 2 layers of fur. The first and closest layer of fur to their skin is crimped and thick to keep them warm. On top of that, they have hollow fur that helps insulate them and trap their body heat close to their skin. This hollow fur also helps them to float and wick away water to keep them drier. If you thought you were hairy, their fur even covers their nose and ears, just like your grandpa.
See? I told you they're amazing. Can you imagine having such a good sense of smell that you could smell things under thick layers of snow? Well, let's take a look at the past now. Here we go.
Caribou in the past, present, or future. You have selected past. Please ask your question.
What were caribou like in the past, in the last 100 years or so?
Wow, would you look at the number of caribou there are in this picture? There must be at least 100 in this one herd alone. As you can see from estimates, caribou numbers were doing well until the late 1980s, when they suddenly dropped from approximately 550 to just 200. Unfortunately, the Banff herd became extirpated or locally extinct in 2009 due to an avalanche And while the numbers have decreased in the Tonquin herd specifically, the others have stayed around the same average high and low, meaning caribou populations are still small and vulnerable in Jasper National Park. Look, this map shows the herds of southern mountain caribou across British Columbia and Alberta. The areas they used to roam were quite huge, but as you can see by the amount of red on the map, these numbers and herds have declined over time. Before 2018, Jasper National Park was home to 4 caribou herds, the Alopesh, Tonquin, Brazeau, and Maligne. These herds are named after local geographic features, such as rivers, valleys, and lakes. This map shows the Alopesh herd in green, which is over 150 animals, the Tonquin herd in turquoise, which has between 49 to 55 animals, the Brazeau herd in purple, which has fewer than 15 animals, and the Maligne herd in pink. From 2018 to 2022, Parks Canada wasn't able to find any traces of the Maligne herd, and they were believed to be extirpated or locally extinct from that area. An easier way to think about this is here. Have a look at this table filled with quarters. Each quarter symbolizes around 10 caribou. In the late 1800s, the record states that this area had large bands and places thick with caribou, just like these quarters show. Throughout the years, these numbers have dwindled down and down. Today, here's the approximate number of caribou left in the national park.
Wow, that was super cool. Okay, so we've learned some really interesting facts about caribou. We've seen what they look like in the past, but let's go into the future.
Caribou in the past, present, or future. You have selected future. Please ask your question.
A question. What are caribou going to look like in Jasper National Park in the next 100 years? Oh, that's odd. It didn't work. Let's try again. What are caribou going to look like in Jasper National Park in the next 100 years? Oh, that's why.
Caution, low battery. Caution, low battery. Caution, low battery.
Low battery. Well, I guess we're going to have to do this the old-fashioned way and find a scientist to help us. But I did read something in the paper recently talking about conservation breeding. I wonder if an expert will be able to tell us anything to do with that. Let's go find one. Come on.
Awesome. And I went on a bit of an adventure and I was, in fact, able to find an expert. So I'd like to welcome Leila. Hi, Leila. Thanks for joining us today.
Hi, Sabrina. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So Leila is a Parks Canada scientist who researches and studies caribou and wolves. She's been a caribou biologist in Jasper National Park since 2006. So in other words, she is basically a caribou expert. So I've got a few questions for you today,
Sure.
Leila. The first one is, what do you do and why is it important?
Well, one of the most important things I think that we do is track populations of caribou. So caribou are officially listed as a species at risk, and they are listed as threatened, which means that if the threats facing those populations aren't reversed or removed, that they will become extinct. So one of the most important parts of my job is to figure out how many there are, because it's not as easy as you might think to count caribou out in the wilderness. And they, if we don't know how many there are, then we don't know if the population is doing better or worse, depending what we're trying to implement in the park to help those populations do better. So we use a bunch of different tools to monitor caribou. And one of the most important is radio collars. And I think you had a lot of really good photos in your adventure there of radio collars, but I'll just show one more here. So there are a couple of different types of radio collars. This one is, I'm not sure if you can see that. Actually, it doesn't seem to have shown up. No. Okay.
Not
No worries.
yet.
No problem at all.
there
Oh,
it
there it
is.
comes. Yeah. So this one is called a GPS collar. So this collar hangs around this female caribou's neck, and here's her little male calf hanging out with her. And this collar collects information on where that animal is every 9 hours. And then it sends that information to my phone, actually, or computer. And then if this animal were to die, then I would get a text and an email saying something has happened to this animal, and we have to go figure out what happened in that case. There's one other photo here to look at. This is a different type of collar. It basically only tells us if it's alive or dead, doesn't have any fancy technology, and won't send the information to me if the animal dies. We actually have to go out and find it either with the helicopter or with the on foot. Another tool we use actually quite a lot is DNA. So DNA can tell us a lot about who is in the herd. We can pick up scat from caribou. So this guy over my shoulder here, this was during one of our DNA surveys. We had landed in a bunch of caribou tracks, and he was very curious. It's one of the interesting facts about caribou is that they will come and see what's happening on the ground because they're very fast runners. They can get away. Anyway, we were picking up samples, and he came to check us out. So those DNA samples are on the caribou scat or poop, and we can tell who is who. So we know this individual, and we have seen him for many, many years in our samples. And that helps us determine how many there are, whether the population is increasing or decreasing, and how many males there are, how many females, how many calves. So it's really important to understand what is happening with a species at risk and whether that population is increasing or decreasing.
Awesome. That's a lot of stuff that you do in just one person. I can imagine you're probably a little bit tired from getting text messages all the time. From
No,
caribou.
thankfully not. They don't die that often. I don't like those text messages. Yeah.
Yeah, not ideal. Okay, well, my second question. What are some reasons that caribou are threatened in Jasper National Park that we need to be monitoring them?
Yeah, well, one of the things I didn't really talk about in what we do is the studying other species. And so the story of caribou is very much a story about all the other species in the ecosystem. And so we do track wolf populations, elk populations, and deer populations. And those are really important because that is part of the story of why caribou have declined in the first place. So we know caribou need specific things. They need old forests where lichen can grow. So lichen doesn't grow in forests that are less than 40 years old. So caribou generally like old forests that have these lichens. They also need an environment that has really low predator numbers. And that's the environment that they had for thousands and thousands of years in Jasper National Park. A couple of things changed when Jasper became a national park. So we brought elk back after they were hunted to extinction. There were very low numbers of elk here to begin with, but they were hunted to extinction. We brought a bunch from the United States, and we killed all the wolves at the same time. And for many, many years, we kept that up in the national park because that's what we thought national parks, were meant to do in the early inception of national parks. And the result was lots and lots and lots of elk, lots of deer. And then when we stopped controlling predators, wolves came back to an environment with lots of prey. They did really, really well. And wolves just started hunting in more places. It's kind of like, a scavenger hunt. If there's a whole bunch of kids running around looking for an item, you are more likely to find it if there are more kids searching out in the playground or wherever that might happen. So that's generally what happened with wolves. Wolves were in caribou habitat and reduced those populations really quickly, like your graph showed. And so it's really quite complicated, but we can kind of sum it up by saying caribou are really sensitive to changes in their environment, and especially those changes in predator numbers. Thankfully, we have a much better system now. We've, over many, many decades, kind of come down in elk numbers, and wolf numbers are what we think are, good for caribou.
Okay, awesome. That actually answers kind of my next question, but if you want to expand on it, it was, what is Parks Canada doing to help with this?
Yeah, well, no, for sure. So we have done a few things that help reduce wolf numbers. So one of the key things that we did in 2006 actually was when an animal got hit on the highway, like an elk or a moose or a deer, we would put that carcass out for the wolves to eat. We stopped doing that, and that really reduced the amount of free food available for wolves because it wasn't really a natural source of food for them anyway. So that's one thing we did. We have also reduced the risk to caribou of wolves running on human-made trails up into the alpines. So this has occurred through closures. We no longer allow people to ski, or of course snowmobiling is never allowed in national park anyway, but we no longer allow people to access caribou habitat because we have seen evidence that those wolves can jump on those trails and get right into caribou habitat when normally they wouldn't be able to. So that's another thing that we have done. And as I said, we've continued to just kind of monitor the situation. So it takes quite a lot of work to figure out, how many there are of elk, wolves, deer, moose, caribou. And that alone has allowed us to understand that conditions are better now for caribou than they have ever been. And so our next step is to bring the numbers back up because there just aren't enough out there. They can't recover on their own. There's not enough moms in the herd, essentially. And one of the ways to do this is through a program called conservation breeding. That means we bring caribou into captivity, we protect them, we let them have their calves, and release their calves into the wild.
Okay, that's something that maybe I heard about happening in Jasper National Park.
Yeah, we are the first jurisdiction in Canada to attempt something like this, maybe even in the world in a certain kind of way. So there are some projects similar to this in Finland, but the details are very different. Obviously, it's a very different ecosystem in Finland. So we are in the early phases of actually constructing a facility already in Jasper, but we won't be capturing animals to put in the facility until 2025.
Okay, so it's on the way, but it's not quite done yet. But that's okay.
Stay tuned.
Okay, well, yeah. Why is this going to be so important for Jasper National Park and caribou specifically in the national park?
Well, recovering caribou is a national goal in Canada for this particular species at risk. It's a really complicated species at risk. There are many, many people across the country working on trying to recover caribou. And so this is one of the only tools we feel that we have available. And it will add individuals directly into the Tonquin herd, which you talked about. And potentially we can even reintroduce animals into the extirpated herds in the Moline and the very, very small Brazeau herd. So it's an exciting program. Like I said, the first of its kind in North America. And I think a lot of other jurisdictions that are struggling with caribou recovery have their eyes on our program to prevent caribou extinction across Western Canada, especially.
That sounds so exciting. Well, now that you've given me all this information about what the future is going to look like, I am definitely going to have to take my virtual reality helmet and go find some batteries, I think, just to see it for myself.
I can't wait to see either.
Yeah, it'll be super interesting. Well, thank you for joining us, Leila, and giving us all that information about what's to come in the future for caribou in the national park.
You're welcome.
And then I think probably
Sabrina, are we diving in with Q&A?
I think we're diving in with Q&A.
If you had any more slides you wanted to share with us, we've got plenty of time, but it's entirely up to you if we want to dive in. We've already got like a ton of classes on YouTube with us. We've got some groups joining us live on StreamYard. It is like an epic audience coast to coast to coast across Canada. So whenever, if you're ready, I'm ready.
Yeah, I'd love to answer some questions. And Leila is also here in the background to answer questions as she's been doing this for many, many years.
Perfect. We promise we haven't got rid of Leila. She's hanging out with us. In fact, if she moves slightly to one side, she ends up with a caribou on her shoulder, which is particularly fun for the broadcast. So we're all, there we go. We're all here together. Again, a huge thank you for this. Caribou Time Machine. It's our only, the virtual reality helmet's a very nice touch and the only part of our cross Canada virtual road trip that has such a thing. So lucky you guys in Jasper. That's some really cool tech. Big hello to Miss Gabois' class, Blue Megan's class, Mr. LeBrun's class, Miss Roberts. We've got some of our favorite teachers here joining us all across the country. I'm going to start with Miss Mustard's group joining us live on StreamYard. If you guys want to kick us off with a question, I'll come on in and you can take us away. Hey, cool hat.
Hi.
Thank you. How do you recover a caribou if it's hurt?
Yes.
That is a really good question. And that's actually a question I'm going to let Leila answer because she's probably done this before.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, if they're in the wild and they're injured, we just let nature take its course. caribou can recover from quite a lot of injuries. And so we've seen some injured animals in the wild. And for example, there's one female that we know of in the Tonquin, and she must have had an injury on her left leg. She has been there for years and years, has several calves over those years. So caribou only have one calf a year. And so she's been able to raise a calf for several years in a row. And she basically is three-legged. So, you know, these animals are really resilient. That means they can have very serious injuries and continue to live. So we don't intervene in the wild if an animal is injured. In captivity, though, if an animal did become injured, absolutely, that is our responsibility. So we would have a number of veterinarians on staff to help administer both, you know, drugs that would help that animal get better, or also potentially more serious interventions like surgery.
We've actually featured the Toronto Zoo on our broadcast many times, talking about the veterinary work they do with animals in their care.
Yeah.
So an example of an amazing organization that works with animals in captivity. It is a different setup, and I'm really glad we got that question to kick us off. So thanks, Ms. Buster's class. Miss Wesley's group joining us at Glen Williams Public School. If you guys want to unmute your mic and come on in, hey, 2 3s, you're good to go. Hi, everybody. Unmute. I want to hear you guys. I'm so excited.
Say hi.
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 You have a question for Leila and Sabrina?
Leah, come on over. You can talk from here. There you go. Can they run fast? Sit down.
Can they run fast? How
Yeah.
good are we going, Leila?
Gosh, I don't know if I can give you a number, but that is one of their biggest assets. That's how they get away from, you know, predators. So like I said, they'll be really curious, like this guy. My hand doesn't stop disappearing. Yeah, anyway, so he came right up to us, and this has happened lots of times when we're out in the field. And then the minute that they realize you're a danger to them, they will take off. So they're faster than almost any ungulate in Jasper, and able to get away from predators.
Whenever we always get superlatives from kids. So it's like, how fast, how big, whatever. So I looked this up. So it's 60 to 80 kilometers. So fast on a regular road, a little slower than a highway, but that is an incredibly speedy animal.
Yeah.
I'm really glad we got that question. Thanks, Ms. Wesley's class. I will be coming back to our live classes, so stay tuned. I promise we'll get a second round of questions. We have so much time for Q&A, which is the best. Bayside Public School doesn't have their devices on, but a big welcome into you guys. And Silas wants to know, how do caribou protect their calves if a wolf is trying to attack?
Well, caribou moms are really defensive, so they are going to use their antlers. So I think you heard in the video that caribou females are the only ungulate, that means member of the deer family. They're the only one that have antlers. And so they will use these antlers to fight off a predator. They'll use the antlers. Thanks. Yeah, good job. There's the word ungulate. They'll use antlers to fight off other females that are also, you know, trying to get resources. But really that mom is going to stand over top of her calf and just try to, you know, fight against that wolf. And eventually she may give up, because a wolf is a very strong animal as well. But lots of times wolves will also give up because they realize they are going to get injured if they continue to pursue that caribou.
Actually, I'm really glad you mentioned that, because growing up, I'm a big predator guy, like wolves, tigers, lions, bears, snakes, crocodiles, anything with a lot of teeth I loved as a kid. And I always assumed when I was about the age of these kids that they always succeeded. They always got what they wanted to. The most successful predators in the world are about 80% of their hunts end in success. Most are about 10 to 20%. So most of the time, the caribou will get away. Most of the time, any prey animal will get away. I like the phrase of it as the life dinner principle. For the wolf, it's like lunch or dinner. For the caribou, it's its life. So you're more inclined to life than to have a meal, probably.
Good point.
YouTubers, you guys are crazy. There's more questions already shared than I can even take in the broadcast. So Miss Fournier's class, Mr. Unda's class, Miss Turco, geez, there's people in Saskatchewan all over the place. Very exciting, everybody. I'm going to take a few from there. Mr. LeBrun's class got one in to begin. Olivia wants to know about the technologies that are used in tracking caribou population. So we've got fancy radar, we've got a cool thing. Anything else you can share with us about what you're using in the field?
You know, we also use remote cameras. So I talked about the radio collars. We use those. And I talked about the DNA. So those are both technologies that we use. But we also use a lot of remote cameras. And so these are stationary cameras that are placed in caribou habitat. And when an animal walks by, then the camera will take either a photo or a video. So we can get information from the population, like the sex of the animal. So is it a male or a female? Does it have a calf? How many is it traveling with? What area of the park is it using? Because we do have probably about 120 cameras across the national park tracking different species. And so the cameras are good also because they allow us to track wolves and other ungulates that might be in the environment as well.
It's been really exciting as a person who's like a super nerd about nature to see how incredible the technology's increased for like, cameras out in the field, and that you can get this incredible, not just snapshots, but whole behaviors and images of regions and get the sense of the populations there. Cameras are really a key technology in a lot of conservation work.
I'll mention one more thing too. We don't use it here, but in other caribou herds, people have cameras on radio collars. So that is incredibly interesting. And you can YouTube some from the 40-mile herd, I think it's called. So it's worthwhile trying to look it up, because you'll get an insight into exactly what an individual animal is doing. And that camera on the side of its collar will show you it eating mushrooms or licking off a brand new calf, or some of these behaviors that, as biologists, we just never, ever get to see. So
for our students today, and this has been a recurring theme in our entire road trip series, if you can find something in your life that you are as passionate about as Sabrina is about going through time and Leila is about cameras on collars, you are set. Like, that is the life dream, I promise, or as I am about sharing these stories. This Robert's class, we're going to go to Stony Plain, Alberta, and I will note, this is a plug for Stony Plain. I think every class in Stony Plain has joined us over this year. Like, it's like the whole town keeps coming to our broadcast, which is amazing. So this Robert's class wants to know, simple question, how long do caribou live?
Oh, it seems like a simple question, but actually it's something that we're still learning about. So one of the things we've been able to get from our long-term DNA is tracking individuals through time. And we have seen individuals in Jasper that are up to about 17 years old. In captivity, they can live to be over 20, but probably 25 is about the limit for females. Okay. And males would be a little bit younger. Yeah, they face a lot more strain just because they're always fighting.
What a surprise. We're going to head back to Miss Mustard's class live. We'll do another live round with our classes, take some more from our YouTube friends. We've still got like 13 minutes. This is like the best, fastest Q&A of all time. I love it. Miss Mustard.
How do you get the tracker? Okay.
Hey, 4 5s, come on.
Oh, I think I heard that. Yeah.
How do they put the trackers on the caribou?
Nice.
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. I could share a little video with you, but I don't have it up right now. Essentially, we hire people whose full-time job is doing, deploying. We call it deploying, to put a tracker out onto animals. And so these people are professionals that fly helicopters, and one pilot will fly up to an animal. So if this animal's up in the open, they will fly up to an animal, and then there's someone in the back who has a modified firearm, a gun, that shoots a net. And on the edge of that net, there are weights so that the net flies out and covers the caribou. And then they land the helicopter. One guy jumps out and basically blindfolds the caribou and puts hobbles on its leg. That increases complication. Collars put on really, really quickly, and the animal is released. So it's a really effective technique. It has been done for many, many years with really low impact to animals. Yeah.
First of all, I've literally never heard of doing something like that with an animal where you don't tranquilize it. That's fascinating. Yeah. And two, I'm picturing this from the caribou's perspective, right? So everything in its evolutionary history is like, okay, something's going to come at me on 4 feet and I'm going to have to run away. And suddenly there's this flying large insect thing and there's a net on me. And then it's like, it would be the strangest experience in the whole world ever. There's nothing, that's...
It must be pretty scary for them. Yeah.
Oh, spectacular. Great question, guys. Miss Wesley's class, 2 3s, come on back in. Hey. Hi. It's not the camera. No, do you have a question for us? Hi.
Dakota, what's your question?
How are the caribous mate?
How do they mate? Yes. How do they mate, Leila?
Yeah, so they have what's called a harem breeding mating structure. So that basically means there's one male and all the males compete, but there's one male that holds or has or guards a group of females. And so the females are in a large group with their calves, and then that male will be able to mate with those females as long as he can keep all the other males away. So there's a similar structure in elk. They do the same kind of thing where there's basically one dominant male that guards all the females. And this happens in October, and usually they're up above tree line. So it's actually the time when we usually are surveying caribou. So that means we're flying around counting them. That's one of our methods of determining how many there are. And we use this time of year because they are in groups and they're high up in the alpine.
Also, it's a great answer. The first time we've ever got a mating question from a 2-3 student in our entire history. So thank you for that in Miss Wesley's class. I'm going to head to Miss Bayside Public School, Miss Abel's group in Belleville. How many caribou are in one herd? Is there a set amount? Is it a few? Is it hundreds? What's the deal, Leila?
Man, this might be the hardest question so far because it doesn't really have an answer. So we call, like, determining what a herd is, first off, is not really clear. We call a herd a group of animals that live in one area. And that group of animals sometimes is all together. Sometimes they're in many, many different little pieces. In woodlands caribou, which is the type of caribou that we have in Jasper, usually they are in small groups, but we still call them one herd. So for example, the Tonquin herd has about 50 animals. And right now they are probably in about 10 different groups. So 10 different groups of 5, we still call that a herd. The most I have ever seen in one place in Jasper, let me just think, I think we had 64 or maybe 61 or something in one group. And that was during the mating time, which is called the rut. Yeah.
Can I just say, Sabrina, you found the best expert ever. Way to go. Like, you tracked down the right person. Yeah.
I'm still learning things right now, so I'm enjoying
This is
listening.
amazing. Like, and truly, Leila, I know you haven't joined us on camera for a lot, but like, this is like the most questions we've ever had in a Q&A.
Oh, I'm so happy.
Just like, we need to do more care. You know what? We're just going to cancel the other program. Just do all care.
I'm so happy everyone is so interested and excited to learn about caribou. It's
They're a
awesome.
spectacular animal. They're one of our iconic species here in Canada. They're across all the northern reaches of the world. They're just really spectacular to see in the wild. I've actually seen caribou not in Canada, but in Iceland. That was a really exciting experience. And so I hope our classes get that opportunity to go north. There's some incredible wildlife in our northern reaches that are just astounding. You don't need to go to East Africa to see some of the great herds on Earth. You can head north, all that good stuff. I'm going to head to Aquitaine, grade 6's Ms. Gadwa's class with the coolest named kid on the entire chat so far, which is Tizana wants to know how can you quickly tell the difference between a male and female caribou if they both have antlers?
Oh, that is such a great question, Susanna. Awesome. It's really hard, and a lot of people can't tell the difference right away. So they do look a little bit different in body shape and size. So the males have kind of a narrower hips. They also obviously have all their various male and female parts. And so we can tell a female and a male by looking at the back end of a caribou. So there's usually just some small distinctive features that takes a long time for people to learn. Males do often have larger antlers, though that isn't always the best determinant. So really, we're just looking for, different bits of the caribou that that distinguish a male from a female. So like the penis, like the vulva, and we're just trying to determine from the air which one is male and female. But a lot of people have a lot of difficulty with it, and it takes a lot of practice, especially when you're flying, you're looking through binoculars, you don't want to be chasing an animal, and you are trying to distinguish the sex of the individual animal.
Yeah.
But really good question.
Great question, guys. All right, I'm going to take a few from YouTube. I am really sorry that we will not be able to take all the questions on YouTube. It would be like a 4-hour broadcast at this point. So I'll take a few from there. We'll do one more live round with our classes, and then I promise to follow up with every registered group with a ton of resources on caribou, so you can keep the learning going when you're done this program. Miss Blumhagen's class, they've asked so many in the chat. I'll go to Miss Fournier's next. You two have asked more than anyone, so you get first dibs. Let's see. Laramie wants to know how many calves they have each year, and can they ever have twins?
Yeah, good question too. So very, very, very rare for caribou to have twins, almost unheard of. They will have one calf every year, and we're not even sure if they do it every single year. Another interesting thing about caribou is compared to other members of the deer family, they usually don't have their first calf until they're close to 3 years old. So elk and deer can definitely have twins, and they can definitely have caribou calves, or sorry, they can definitely have elk or deer calves when they are younger. So late reproduction when they're older and one calf per year are the two key features of caribou populations that put them at vulnerability of decreasing populations. So they just can't grow their population very quickly. And that's actually the reason that when there's 9 females left in the herd or 10 females left in the herd, like we see in the Tonquin, that's actually the reason that they can't recover on their own. They just can't put out enough calves.
Yep. I'm really, really glad we got that question. We're going to head to Miss Fournier's class, and then I have a challenge for our live classes, and that is to stump Leila. That is your sacred goal for the rest of this program, where in 5 minutes, we're going to do it together. Ms. Fournier's class wants to know a very important question, which is, why are caribou so important? Can you speak to that for us?
Well, caribou are what we call both an indicator species and an umbrella species. And so an indicator species is a species that can help us determine whether an ecosystem or an environment is functioning the way it should, because they are sensitive to changes in the environment. So this is why they are important. When a caribou population is declining, something isn't quite right in the ecosystem. And so that's your first indication. An umbrella species is a species that offers protection to a whole bunch of other species that live in the same type of habitat. So caribou are wide-ranging. They use these pristine alpine environments. They need old environments. And as a result, we protect caribou habitat. We protect a whole bunch of habitat for other species that also need that same habitat.
Fantastic. Ms. Fournier's class, thank you so much for that. I will say for our YouTube audience, again, best audience the entire year, so way to go. I love your interest, and I'm going to get you a ton of stuff when we're done this broadcast to keep the learning going. Ms. Mustard, Ms. Wesley, I'm coming to you next. Ms. Bayside Public Schools with us on StreamYard, but they shared a question in the chat, and I love this from Charlie because it speaks to the animal welfare interest of all of the students in our programs. When they're putting the tracker on the caribou, when they're shooting it with the net, there must be weights on the net to hold down the caribou. Do the weights ever hit the caribou? How do you try and make sure that the caribou is not injured in that process?
Yeah, another really good question. I'll just be super quick. The weights are on the edges of the net, so in the corners. They are heavy enough to spread the net out, but not heavy enough to hold an animal down. Occasionally an animal can get hit, but the worst case that would happen is it gets a bruise. Usually the weights, though, are flying out away from the animal. So good
perfect.
question.
So they're designed in such a way as to prevent that from being a possibility. And we hear that a lot in programs around fisheries nowadays, in a lot of our programs. When we take the time to care for how we design things, we mitigate those issues in a big way. So I'm really glad we got that question. Thanks, Charlie. Miss Mustard's class coming to you first, and then Miss Wesley will wrap up with you in just a second. Come on in, grade 4-5s. Hey.
Are caribou ever aggressive?
Ooh.
Yeah, another good question. So with humans, almost never, very, very rare. With each other, absolutely. When the males are fighting during the breeding time, they are aggressive. Females can even be aggressive to each other when they're fighting over the best quality food. But very rare are they aggressive towards humans.
Okay, fantastic, guys. And Miss Wesley's class, to wrap us up, our final chance to stump Leila. I really don't think we're going to succeed at this point, but best of luck. Hey!
Why do caribou fight each other?
Yeah, what's going on, Leila?
Well, the males fight each other because they really want, there's a really strong biological drive to be the dad, essentially. So they fight each other to have an opportunity to have a female to breed with and eventually pass on all of their genetic information to the next generation. And so there's a strong biological drive to compete for those opportunities, if that makes sense.
Guys, this has been so much fun. I know we've got half of Alberta turning into today's broadcast, so if you're in Alberta, just get in the car when you're done this program. I know it's 7 hours like nobody's business, so you can all head to Jasper and go check it out and have a great time in person. If you're not in Jasper or nearby, from across Canada, you get the chance to visit. It is one of the most spectacular places on this planet. You can go bug Sabrina, bug Leila in person and ask them all these caribou questions you so obviously have. And I'm going to follow up with so much more to keep learning going when we're done. But as I've noted numerous times, this is part of our incredible cross-Canada virtual road trip. You can check out all the upcoming programs on the link below. And in conjunction with our third partner in this incredible partnership, the Canadian Geographic team, we have an incredible contest for you guys. You can win some awesome prizes. I'll link that into the registration when we're done the broadcast as well, and I'll put it in our YouTube chat in just a second. But a really cool way to keep the learning going as well, and get some fun, funds by taking part in today's broadcast. Sabrina, Leila, thank you both so much for such a captivating program. And what we do to end every session, I'm going to bring in Miss Mustard and Miss Wesley's class to join me in saying a big thank you and farewell. So, you guys, I want you to unleash all the excitement you've had the entire time in the Q&A. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a wonderful day. Bye. See you later.